Hello, and welcome to today's exploration of one of the most pivotal moments in human history, the Neolithic Revolution. This transformative period, also known as the First Agricultural Revolution, marked a seismic shift in how our ancestors lived, from a nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle to one of settled agriculture. It's a fascinating journey that spans thousands of years and reshaped not just our diet, but the very fabric of human society. Now you might be wondering, when exactly did this revolution occur? Well, it's not as simple as pinpointing a single date. The transition to agriculture began at different times in various parts of the world, but we're generally looking at a period between 12,000 and 10,000 years ago. This wasn't a sudden change, mind you, but a gradual process that unfolded over centuries. What I find particularly intriguing about this period is how it fundamentally altered our relationship with the natural world. For the first time, humans began to exert control over their food supply, cultivating plants and domesticating animals. This shift from foraging to farming had profound implications, not all of which were immediately positive, as we'll explore later. One of the key aspects of the Neolithic Revolution was the domestication of plants. This wasn't simply a matter of deciding one day to plant some seeds. It involved a deep understanding of plant life cycles, selective breeding, and the development of new tools and techniques. The earliest evidence we have for plant domestication comes from the Fertile Crescent, that arc of land stretching from Egypt through the Levant and down into Mesopotamia. In this region, people began cultivating crops like wheat, barley, peas, and lentils. But it wasn't just in the Middle East where this was happening. In East Asia, rice and millet were being domesticated, while in the Americas, crops like maize, squash, and beans formed the foundation of agricultural societies. What's truly remarkable is how these early farmers managed to transform wild plants into the crops we know today. Take wheat, for instance. The wild ancestors of wheat had seeds that would scatter easily in the wind, great for natural dispersal, but not so good if you're trying to harvest them. Over generations, early farmers selected plants that retained their seeds, eventually developing the wheat varieties we're familiar with today. But the Neolithic Revolution wasn't just about plants. The domestication of animals played an equally crucial role. Dogs were likely the first animals to be domesticated, probably as hunting companions. But as agriculture developed, we see the emergence of livestock: sheep, goats, cattle, and pigs. The relationship between humans and these animals was symbiotic. The animals provided not just meat, but also milk, wool, and labour. In return, humans provided protection and a steady food supply. This close association had profound effects on both human and animal evolution. For instance, the ability to digest milk into adulthood, lactase persistence, became much more common in human populations that practiced dairying. It's worth noting that the process of animal domestication wasn't uniform across the globe. Different regions domesticated different animals based on local availability and needs. In the Andes, for example, llamas and alpacas were domesticated, while in parts of Asia, water buffalo became an integral part of agricultural systems. The Middle East served as the source for many animals that could be domesticated, such as sheep, goats, and pigs. This area was also the first region to domesticate the dromedary. As we delve deeper into the Neolithic Revolution, it's crucial to understand that this wasn't a localized event. The transition to agriculture occurred independently in several parts of the world, and from these centres, it spread outwards, transforming societies as it went. Let's start with the Fertile Crescent, often considered the cradle of agriculture. From this region, farming practices spread into Europe, North Africa, and parts of Asia. The process was gradual, taking thousands of years. It's fascinating to trace the movement of crops and livestock across the continent, often following river valleys and coastal routes. In Europe, for instance, we can track the spread of farming from the southeast to the northwest. This wasn't just a matter of new techniques being adopted, it involved the movement of people as well, with farming communities gradually expanding into new territories. The genetic evidence for this is quite compelling, showing a significant influx of Near Eastern ancestry into European populations during this period. Meanwhile, in East Asia, we see a different pattern of agricultural development and spread. Rice cultivation likely began in the Yangtze River Valley, while millet was first domesticated in northern China. From these centres, agricultural practices spread throughout East and Southeast Asia. The story of agriculture's spread in the Americas is equally fascinating. Maize, one of the world's most important crops, was first domesticated in Mexico. From there, it spread both north and south, becoming a staple food for many Native American cultures. The development of maize agriculture was a remarkable feat of genetic engineering, transforming a wild grass called teosinte into the productive crop we know today. What I find particularly intriguing about this global spread of agriculture is how it adapted to local conditions. As farming practices moved into new areas, they had to be modified to suit different climates, soils, and ecosystems. This led to the development of a diverse array of agricultural systems around the world, each uniquely suited to its local environment. The spread of agriculture wasn't just about the movement of crops and livestock, it also involved the transmission of knowledge and technology. New tools were developed and refined, from simple digging sticks to more complex implements like the plough. Irrigation systems were developed to manage water resources, allowing agriculture to flourish in drier regions. One of the most significant technological developments associated with the spread of agriculture was pottery. The ability to create durable, waterproof containers was crucial for storing and transporting food. Different pottery styles often serve as markers for archaeologists, helping to trace the movement of agricultural societies. It's important to note that the spread of agriculture wasn't always a peaceful process. In many cases, it involved competition and conflict between farming communities and hunter-gatherer groups. The farmers, with their ability to support larger populations, often had the advantage in these encounters. This led to significant demographic changes, with farming populations expanding at the expense of hunter-gatherer groups. The diffusion across Europe from the Aegean to Britain took about 2,500 years, 8,500 to 6,000 BP. The Baltic region was penetrated a bit later, around 5,500 BP, and there was also a delay in settling the Pannonian Plain. As we continue our journey through the Neolithic Revolution, it's crucial to examine the profound consequences this shift had on human society. The transition to agriculture wasn't just a change in food production methods. It fundamentally reshaped how humans lived, interacted, and organised themselves. One of the most immediate effects of agriculture was the ability to support larger populations. With a more reliable and abundant food supply, communities could grow beyond the size limitations of hunter-gatherer groups. This population growth led to the development of the first permanent settlements, which would eventually evolve into towns and cities. However, it's important to note that this population growth wasn't an unmitigated blessing. The shift to a more sedentary lifestyle and a diet heavily reliant on a few staple crops had significant health implications. Contrary to what one might expect, the average height of humans actually decreased in the early agricultural period, and there's evidence of increased rates of malnutrition and certain diseases. The development of permanent settlements had far-reaching social consequences. For the first time, humans began to accumulate property beyond what they could carry with them. This led to the concept of private property, and, inevitably, to social stratification. As some individuals or families accumulated more resources than others, we see the emergence of social hierarchies and the beginnings of political structures. Agriculture also necessitated new forms of social organisation. The need to manage shared resources like water for irrigation, or to coordinate planting and harvesting, led to the development of more complex social structures. This, in turn, paved the way for the emergence of leadership roles and eventually centralised authority. Another significant consequence of the agricultural revolution was the division of labour. In hunter-gatherer societies, most individuals were involved in food procurement. With agriculture, it became possible for some members of the community to specialise in non-food producing activities. This led to the development of crafts and trades, and ultimately to technological advancements in areas like metallurgy and construction. The Neolithic Revolution also had profound impacts on human culture and belief systems. The shift to an agricultural lifestyle with its emphasis on seasonal cycles and the need to ensure good harvests likely influenced the development of early religious practices. We see evidence of this in the emergence of fertility cults and the worship of agricultural deities in many early civilizations. Moreover, the ability to produce food surpluses allowed for the support of non-food producing specialists, including religious leaders. This led to the development of more complex religious systems and the construction of the first monumental religious structures, such as the temples at Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. It's also worth considering the environmental impacts of the agricultural revolution. As humans began to modify their environment on a large scale through activities like deforestation and irrigation, they set in motion processes of environmental change that continue to this day. The spread of agriculture led to significant changes in local ecosystems and began the long process of human-induced climate change that we're still grappling with today. Food surpluses made possible the development of a social elite who were not otherwise engaged in agriculture, industry or commerce, but dominated their communities by other means and monopolized decision-making. As we delve deeper into the consequences of the Neolithic Revolution, it's important to acknowledge that this transformative period wasn't all positive progress. In fact, there were significant downsides to the adoption of agriculture that are often overlooked in popular narratives about human development. One of the most striking negative consequences was the impact on human health. Contrary to what we might expect, the shift to agriculture initially led to a decline in overall health and life expectancy. The reasons for this are multifaceted. Firstly, the reliance on a limited number of staple crops resulted in a less varied and less nutritionally balanced diet compared to that of hunter-gatherers. This led to deficiencies in certain vitamins and minerals. Moreover, the close proximity of humans to domesticated animals, combined with larger, more densely populated settlements, created ideal conditions for the spread of infectious diseases. Many of the diseases that have plagued humanity throughout history, such as influenza, smallpox and measles, are believed to have originated during this period as zoonotic diseases that jumped from animals to humans. Another often overlooked consequence of the Neolithic Revolution is its impact on gender relations. In many hunter-gatherer societies, there was a relatively egalitarian division of labour between men and women. With the advent of agriculture, we see the emergence of more rigid gender roles and, in many cases, the subordination of women. This shift is often attributed to several factors. The increased importance of physical strength in agricultural labour may have given men an advantage. Additionally, the concept of property and inheritance, which became more significant with settled agriculture, often favoured male lineages. Some scholars argue that this period marked the beginning of institutionalised gender inequality that persisted in many societies for millennia. It's also worth considering the psychological impact of the transition to agriculture. Hunter-gatherer societies typically worked fewer hours and had more leisure time than early agricultural societies. The demands of farming, planting, tending, harvesting created a more regimented lifestyle tied to the agricultural calendar. Some anthropologists argue that this led to a fundamental shift in human psychology, moving us away from a more present-focused existence to one preoccupied with planning for the future. The Neolithic Revolution also had significant environmental impacts that we're still grappling with today. The spread of agriculture led to widespread deforestation as land was cleared for crops and pasture. This not only affected local ecosystems, but also began the long process of human-induced climate change. Moreover, intensive agriculture often led to soil degradation and erosion. In some cases, this resulted in the collapse of early agricultural societies, such as in parts of Mesopotamia, where soil salinization due to irrigation practices rendered once fertile land unusable. It's also important to consider the impact on human conflict. While violence certainly existed in hunter-gatherer societies, the advent of agriculture, with its concepts of territory and property, led to new forms of conflict. The ability to accumulate surpluses made raiding and warfare more attractive propositions. Some archaeologists argue that this period saw an increase in organised violence and the beginnings of what we might recognise as warfare. Despite these negative consequences, it's crucial to understand that the Neolithic Revolution was not a mistake or a wrong turn in human history. It was a complex process with both positive and negative outcomes, and it set the stage for the development of complex societies and eventually the world we live in today. Understanding both the benefits and the drawbacks of this pivotal period in human history can provide valuable insights as we face contemporary challenges related to food production, social organisation, and our relationship with the environment. As we approach the end of our exploration of the Neolithic Revolution, it's crucial to consider its enduring legacy and how it continues to shape our world today. The transition to agriculture set in motion a series of changes that fundamentally altered the course of human history, and many aspects of our modern world can be traced back to this pivotal period. Perhaps the most obvious legacy is our current global food system. The crops and livestock first domesticated during the Neolithic period still form the backbone of world agriculture. Wheat, rice, maize, and other staple crops that were first cultivated thousands of years ago continue to be the primary source of calories for much of the world's population. Similarly, the animals domesticated during this period, cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, remain central to global meat and dairy production. But the legacy of the Neolithic Revolution goes far beyond our food systems. The shift to settled agriculture laid the groundwork for the development of cities, states, and eventually civilizations. The ability to produce food surpluses allowed for population growth and the development of increasingly complex social structures. In many ways, the roots of our modern political and economic systems can be traced back to this period. The Neolithic Revolution also had profound impacts on human culture and cognition. The development of agriculture required new ways of thinking about time, planning, and the natural world. This shift in cognitive patterns laid the groundwork for the development of writing, mathematics, and other complex systems of thought that are fundamental to modern civilization. Moreover, the religious and philosophical concepts that emerged during this period continue to influence our worldviews today. The idea of humans as separate from and dominant over nature, which is prevalent in many modern societies, can be traced back to the agricultural revolution and the new relationship with the environment it fostered. It's also worth considering how the Neolithic Revolution continues to shape our relationship with the natural world. The environmental changes set in motion by the spread of agriculture, deforestation, soil degradation, loss of biodiversity, are issues we're still grappling with today. In many ways, our current environmental challenges are the long-term consequences of the shift to agriculture that began thousands of years ago. The legacy of the Neolithic Revolution is also evident in our bodies and our genes. The shift to an agricultural diet led to changes in human biology, from the shape of our jaws to our ability to digest certain foods. The spread of agriculture also shaped human genetic diversity, as farming populations expanded and mixed with or replaced hunter-gatherer groups. Perhaps most significantly, the Neolithic Revolution set us on the path of technological innovation and cultural complexity that has defined human history ever since. The ability to produce food surpluses allowed for specialization and the development of new technologies, setting in motion a process of accelerating change that continues to this day. As we face the challenges of the 21st century, from feeding a growing global population to addressing climate change, understanding the Neolithic Revolution and its long-term consequences is more important than ever. By examining this pivotal period in human history, we can gain insights into the deep roots of our current systems and potentially find new solutions to contemporary problems. In conclusion, the Neolithic Revolution was truly a watershed moment in human history. Its effects rippled out across millennia, shaping not just how we produce food, but how we live, think, and interact with each other and the world around us. As we continue to grapple with its legacy, both positive and negative, we would do well to remember that the choices we make today about food production, social organisation, and our relationship with the environment will have equally far-reaching consequences for future generations. Ancient microbial genomics has shown that progenitors to human-adapted strains of Salmonella enterica infected up to 5,500-year-old agropastoralists throughout Western Eurasia, providing molecular evidence for the hypothesis that the Neolithization process facilitated the emergence of Salmonella enterica. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the most transformative periods in human history. Your engagement with this content truly makes a difference, and I'm always eager to hear your thoughts and questions. If you found this exploration of the Neolithic Revolution enlightening, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Your support enables me to continue delving into these fascinating historical topics. Do let me know in the comments what other aspects of human prehistory or early civilizations you'd be interested in exploring in future videos. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the rich tapestry of human history.